Good morning, everybody. Welcome to City Hall, welcome to Council Chambers, and welcome to a meeting of the Los Angeles City Council for today, Wednesday, June 9th, 2004. The City Council meets every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. Meetings are open to the public, and we do invite you to join us. For members of the public unable to attend council meetings, we can be viewed live on your cable station, Channel 35. We can also be viewed live via webcast from the city's homepage or heard via council phone. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Cardenas, Garcetti, Gruel, Han, Labange, Ludlow, Miskowski, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Smith, Villaraigosa, Weinstein, Padilla, 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. The council is officially in session. First order of business, please.
Approval of the minutes.
Ms. Miskowski moves, Ms. Gruel seconds.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Mr. Zine moves, and Mr. Villaraigosa seconds.
Before on the regular agenda, Mr. President, do you wish to take public comment up at this time?
Let's go through the agenda and dispense with consent items, and we will take general public comment as our first order of business.
First items on the agenda are items noticed for public hearing. Items 1 through 5 are ordinances for street lighting districts.
Okay, members, items 1 through 5 are now before us. I do have a card on item number 2. We'll call that special. On the balance of the items, I do not have requests from members of the public to address the council. Those public hearings are open. Those public hearings are now closed. Members wishing to call any of these items special? Seeing none, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Those are ordinances, and we'll carry over for a second reading unless we achieve 12 members today. Next item, please.
Next items, Mr. President, 6, 7, and 8 are street lighting district hearings, and council should open the hearings and continue the hearings and ordinances to June 29th.
Okay, members, items 6, 7, and 8 are now before us. And again, I do not have requests from members of the public to address the council on these items. Public hearings are open, and without objection, continue to June 29th of this year. Next item, please.
Item 9 is also a public hearing item. It is an ordinance for a disestablishment of a business improvement district. Do you wish to hold that on the desk for 12 members?
Okay, members, item number 9 now before us. And without request from members of the public to address the council, let's open and close those public hearings. And we're now up to 11 members. So let's hold this ordinance on the desk, and we can reconsider 1, 3, 4, and 5 if we achieve 12 members today. Next items, please.
Next items are items for which public hearings have been held. Items 10 through 28. Committee reports have been submitted and distributed on 12 and 13, and there is a confirmation of a city official, item number 10.
Okay, let's hold 10 temporarily on the desk. That'll be the first item we take after general public comment. Members, 10 through 28 now before us. Public hearings have been held on these items, and we do have reports with recommendations from committee. Motion from the floor would be required to reopen the public hearings. I think we can also continue items 25, 26, and 27, and 28.
Yes.
Those are matters relative to the purchase of the Transamerica building and the future site for Parker Center. Had a joint committee meeting yesterday that's making progress on the issue, but we're not ready for final council action yet. So 25 to 28 are continued. Is that for 1 week, Ms. Gruel? For 1 week, that'll be June 16th, the new hearing date. On the balance of the items, do we have any requests for specials? Mr. Parks.
Number 13.
13, call special by Mr. Parks. Any other specials? Seeing none, on the balance of the items, Madam Clerk, please open the roll, please close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Those are approved. I believe we have an urgency clause on item 11. We can reconsider that when we get 12 members today. Next item, please.
Next item, Mr. President, items 29 through 52 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay, members, items 29 through 52 now before us, and I do not have requests from members of the public to address the council. Actually, we do have a card on item 45. We'll call that special. On the balance of the items, we will open and close the public hearings. Members wishing to call any specials? Mr. Smith?
Item number 41 continue for 1 week at the request of the department and with the approval of Mrs. Perry.
Okay, any objection to continuing item 41 for 1 week? Seeing none, item 41 is continued. Ms. Hahn?
39, special.
39, call special by Ms. Hahn. Mr. Garcetti, I believe, is also okay with continuing item 44 till next Tuesday. Without objection, that's continued. Any other specials or continuances? Seeing none on the balance of the items, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 eyes.
Those are approved. We now have 12 members present. Items 29 and 30 are ordinances and are approved on first reading. Madam Clerk, let's go back and reconsider previously acted upon ordinances.
That would be 1, 3, 4, 5, and the urgency clause ordinance, 11.
Okay, let's open the roll in reconsideration, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 eyes.
Those ordinances are reconsidered and back before us. And seeing no further discussion, let's reopen the roll on those ordinances, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 eyes.
Those ordinances on first reading are approved. And is that the end of our agenda, Madam Clerk?
Yes, it is, Mr. President.
Okay, before taking up general public comment this morning, colleagues, let me take a point of personal privilege. See Delphia Jones in the back of chambers. Can you come up and give us a 30-second version of what just happened out in the Board of Public Works hearing room? Just couldn't help myself, folks. There was an award given to a community group that's doing a tremendous job in the San Fernando Valley. Ms. Jones.
Delphia Jones, Operation Clean Sweep. The Board of Public Works was happy to honor this morning the Pacoima Graffiti Busters for their outstanding work in Council District 7 and other areas of the East Valley. We have a number of categories that we award contractors in, and theirs was for best response time. And I'm here to tell you that their response time in many cases is 2 hours. So we wanted to acknowledge them for that, acknowledge Rogelio Flores, the executive director, and the field staff who do an excellent job and a very, very difficult job. Thank you.
And if they would please stand up, take a bow. This is some board members, the executive director, some staff. And Ms. Jones, what's the average response time again?
10. 2 hours.
2 hours, okay?
For graffiti removal. Ms. Gruhl.
Well, even though they may have the name of your district in their title, I am pleased they have been active participants in Council District 2. And I want to say thank you so much. Your responsiveness has been incredible, a joy to work with, all of the individuals. And you've been there for a lot of my operations, as we call them, in my district for Graffiti Day and Alley Cleanup Day. And I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, because you have been a tremendous organization in providing opportunities for youth as well. And maybe we'll change their name so they're not just Pacoima. But anyways, Alex is proud to have you in his district, but we're proud to have you in Council District 2. Thank you very, very much.
Mr. Ludlow.
Miss Jones, I just wanted to take issue with that. We called them in South LA 8 hours ago, and we still haven't seen them yet. So
They've been in City Hall.
they're in City Hall, and I just want to congratulate you, Delphia. You've done great work for so many years. You're one of the most invisible heads of departments here in the city, but people out in the community see you every day through the great work that all of your graffiti contractors do. So keep up the good work, and congratulations to you all.
And clearly, colleagues, I'm very proud of the work they do. They're not only one of the more successful graffiti abatement organizations in the city, they're also one of the newest, if not the newest. They only came into existence about 4 years ago after I had first taken office. And Mr. Reyes, something that I know you'd be very passionate about. You look at them, you look at their board of directors, the staff, and the volunteers, and the court referrals that they utilize, all local, all really based in the district, in the community. So providing some tremendous opportunity and doing good work for the city of Los Angeles. So congratulations, guys. Thank you for being here. Mr. Garcetti.
If we could reconsider Mr. Labange, for Mr. Labange, item number 6 from yesterday's agenda, which was sent to committee. It was a Vasconcelos needle exchange or needle policy bill, and we've been informed it's quite timely right now. So we'd like to reconsider that.
Okay.
There's no objection.
Members, we have a motion for reconsideration of item 6 from yesterday's agenda. Please open the roll on reconsideration. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 eyes.
That is now back before us. And your desired action, Mr. Garcetti?
We'd like to take a vote on it today, if possible.
Okay. Are we ready for a vote, or are we going to have discussion on this item? I know Mr. Smith had also requested to be continued yesterday.
Do you want
If
to
there-
wait on it, Mr. Labange? Okay.
If there's no discussion, let's open the roll on item 6 from yesterday's agenda. Roll is open. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes, 1 no.
That is approved. Forthwith, please. And that brings us now to general public comment for today's meeting, an opportunity for members of the public to address the council on matters within the city's jurisdiction but not appearing on today's agenda. And we have a group of folks here representing the South Central Farmers, Francisco Moreno, Nadine Diaz, Francisco Losornio, and Miguel Angel Perez. If you would all please come forward. Madam Clerk, clock please on the board. And if we need translation services, then let's certainly accommodate that. (41)
Buenos días. Vengo representando un grupo de jardineros, gente que estamos trabajando un pedazo de tierra en la Alameda y la 41.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm here representing a group of farmers that are working on a piece of land on 41st and Alameda.
Tenemos ya 10, 12 años trabajando esa tierra y muchas gentes que ya estamos retiradas, es de lo único que nos entretenemos por ahí.
We have been working on that land for approximately 10 to 12 years. A lot of us are retired people, and that's what we do as a pastime.
Y queremos que nos ayuden a seguirla conservando, para seguir trabajando nosotros.
And we'd like you to help us so that we can keep that land in order for us to continue working. Thank you.
Buenos días, mi nombre es Francisco Javier Losornio. Para los archivos, vivo en el 758 de Avenida 43, Los Ángeles, postal número 90031. Francisco Losornio.
Good morning. My name is Francisco Losorio. Just for the record, I live at 758 east of 43rd Avenue in Los Angeles, zip code 90031.
Estoy aquí en solidaridad y apoyo a los campesinos del Sur Centro de Los Ángeles, los estudiantes de trabajo social de la Escuela del Sur Centro de California. Apoyamos a los campesinos en su lucha para mantener el campo que los campesinos cosechan durante el año.
I'm a student at the University of Southern California here in Los Angeles, so I want to let you know that all the students at the School of Southern California here in Los Angeles support the work of these farmers, and we also support the farmers.
Los estudiantes reconocen que ciertas personas que están aquí hoy están en contra de la lucha de los campesinos del Sur Centro de Los Ángeles. Mi mensaje hoy es que aquí estamos y no nos vamos. Los estudiantes y campesinos demandamos justicia y libertad.
A lot of the students at that school, we recognize that certain people here in this body, they're against the fight of these farm workers that work the land at South Los Angeles. My message to you and to those people is this, that we're here and we're not going anywhere. The students, we support the students, and the students support the farmers, and we want to let you know that we ask for justice and for liberty.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Good morning, City Council members. My name is Nadine Diaz. I'm also a USC School of Social Work graduate student, and I would like to also emphasize that the USC Keck School of Medicine also supports the farmers at 41st and Alameda. We believe that the 350 families have a right to self-determination and the right to feed their families, children, seniors, and everyone who participates in the right to feed their families. Please, we urge you to visit the farm. It is a beautiful place. It provides oxygen. There are 500 trees, and we welcome you. Thank you.
Morning. Miguel Angel Perez, Los Angeles Land Use Coalition, in support, South Central Farmers, 41st and Alameda. Democracy Everybody hear that? Here in the chambers? City of Los Angeles? The world? When the City Council is in session, people who are observing and listening pay attention to you. We listen from our hearts and our minds. Again today, the sound of democracy is speaking. South Central farmers, City of Los Angeles, the world. Farmers feeding families. Again, it is important for everybody that is listening to these words, the importance of listening and understanding the plight and struggle. It is to all of us, it is to the advantage of all of us to understand democracy is what we live for. Democracy is what we speak, and we listen, and we understand. Every day, we all want to live and breathe. We all want to eat. We all want to survive. Basic human rights. The basic human rights are threatened. 41st and Alameda. The campesinos and the workers represent the needs of the world. Again today, it is being said, aquí estamos y no nos vamos. Tierra y libertad.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker under public comment is M.L. Dickerson. M.L. Dickerson, under general public comment, please.
Yes, this concerns the Department of Water and Power.
Okay, sir, go ahead.
And what, to my best intellectual abilities, I've observed to be unethical business practices. What happened was, my family has owned property in the area of Watts since before the 1965 riots. An individual ran up a bill, was allowed to run up a bill of almost $1,200. The next tenant attempts to move in, and instead of credit check, security deposit, we turn on your lights. They want to know do you know this guy? Are you related to this guy? The verbal demands made by the Department of Water and Power representatives out of the Watts branch office says this bill is going to be paid before we will activate service at this address. Fortunately, I was able to contact my councilmanic district representative. The lights are on presently. But think about it. I've called the city attorney's office, mentioned to them that I want to file a claim. We want to file a claim against the Department of Water and Power. I talked to a guy for about 15 minutes. He's talking to me a little bit funny. I said, wait a minute, guy. Who do you work for? Oh, I work for the Department of Water and Power. So the first thing I want to do is, when you call the city attorney's office with a complaint against the Department of Water and Power, I want those Department of Water and Power employees to immediately identify themselves to anyone who calls the city attorney's office that they are, in fact, employees of the Department of Water and Power you're filing your claim with. Now, here's how it goes. The tenants inform me that they're trying to get the power turned on since April 17th, okay? The power doesn't come on until June 4th. I get into it the week of June 1st. I contact my council district representative, but you know what? I call the number on the back of the piece of paper, on the back of the bill. This is what's going on. What do you want? We want that bill paid before we activate service. Okay, can I have that in writing? I have to talk to my supervisor. Well, put your supervisor on the line. Okay, what do you want us to do? We're not going to activate service until this bill is paid. That we let go up to almost $1,200. I've never had a $1,200 electric bill where they didn't turn the power off. But continuing on, I know I'm running out of time here, right? You got to throw me out of here. I'm talking about Department of Water and Power and City Attorney's Office. I know I got to go, right? So anyway, bottom line, I say, give us in writing what you're saying you want us to do. Guess what? The supervisor at the second level is calling me back. He's calling me back, calling the tenant back in less than 3 hours, turning on the power. So that's called extortion. When you have no legal right to make a demand on someone, and then you use your power to extort, to force them to do what you don't have any legal right to ask them to do, that's why you won't put it in writing.
Thank you very much. Let me ask you to conclude at this time.
Extortion.
This concludes general public comment for today's meeting. And before proceeding to the next item, colleagues, as you can see, there's a group of students who has joined us in the back of chambers. Let's welcome from Gridley Elementary. There are 6 adults and 50 students led by Mr. Yarnell. If you would please stand up and wave. Thank you for visiting City Hall. Welcome to council chambers. We're always happy to have you. Madam Clerk, next order of business, please.
Mr. President, item number 9 was being held on the desk as an ordinance. Do you wish to take up that matter?
Sure.
There was no
Item-
public comments.
Item
on
number
it.
9, now that we have more than 12 members present, let's open the roll on item 9, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 eyes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Item number 10 is confirmation of Mr. Orlando Ward to the Affordable Housing Commission.
Okay, Mr. Ward, please come forward. Thank you for your patience. Colleagues, we have a commission nominee before us. Public hearing has been held in committee. We have a committee report recommending approval of Mr. Ward as an Affordable Housing Commissioner. Are there members of the council wishing to speak at this time? Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I just wanted to commend Mr. Ward again, not only for his exemplary record here in the city of Los Angeles, but again for putting himself forward for this position. We had a good hearing in the Housing, Community, and Economic Development Committee, unanimous recommendation, of course, to support Mr. Ward. So I hope we'll make it unanimous for the whole body. And I don't know, again, I'd afford Mr. Ward the possibility if you'd like to say something to the full body here about some of your ideas. I was very impressed with what you said in committee, and I think you should probably share it with my colleagues here as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilman Garcetti. Good morning, council members. I'm really, really excited to have this opportunity to serve the city of Los Angeles in this capacity. And I think it's worth noting that, you know, some of you have seen my background, the work I do now at the Midnight Mission, my educational background, and these sort of things, which certainly qualify me to assist in this manner. But one thing that doesn't appear on my resume is something I'll share with you now. As a formerly homeless person, it is during that challenging time in my life that I really became familiar with the affordable housing crisis that all of Los Angeles faces now. It is that experience, coupled with what I do now, helping homeless and near homeless individuals find appropriate housing, that compels me to serve in this capacity as an Affordable Housing Commissioner. My experience as Vice Chair of the Center City Redevelopment PAC, my work on the Neighborhood Council, has furthered my experience in being able to work with commissioners and other groups in crafting solutions that will work for a very balanced population and diverse population like we have here in Los Angeles. I'm particularly interested in alternatives for those in middle income and very low income ranges. Affordable housing affects every aspect of what we do here in the city of Los Angeles. I believe the city recognizes that. I believe the city is compelled to work in those directions. I am honored to work in this area, and I look forward to working with all of you and determining exactly what we need to do as a city to fulfill our commitment to our fellow citizens. Thank you.
Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Council President. One of the key aspects of managing the resources we have, the assets, the buildings, more importantly, addressing the needs of the families in these areas is the notion of security. I just want to understand from your point of view, given our challenges with our limited budgets, what strategies you might have in mind? What are your observations regarding securing our facilities, knowing that we have to be creative in our approach and making it safe for our kids? Just get some insight from you on that.
You know, one of the things that, Councilman Reyes, that you brought up, creativity, absolutely. We are facing extreme challenges financially as a city, as a municipality. We've got to find a way to keep developers, to keep for-profit and non-profit housing developers engaged in this, because it's those resources, that public and private partnership, that is going to create the solution necessary. You know, we take a look at, there's inclusionary zoning issues, there are other issues that we have to take a look at. These all have to be met with creative response, thinking out of the box. Affordable housing crisis isn't anything new to Los Angeles. You know, and early as 1990, we developed a housing department to address some of these issues. We've come some distance in that area. We've got a long way to go. And basically, we've got to do more with less.
I really believe we should do everything in our power to avoid and minimize economic ghettos.
Absolutely.
But looking at the ability to display how mixed income environments do work, I think there's a level of education that needs to occur from the commission so that we get away from an image as affordable housing just means this. It really has a whole spectrum of products, a whole spectrum of environments, and we need to start becoming more aggressive in informing the neighborhood councils, the homeowner associations, to talk about how these environments can look, how they behave in other settings, so that we can allay those fears. Because quite frankly, more than half the city can't even afford a home right now. So we have a challenge before us. I look forward to working with you, and hopefully you take to heart some of the approaches that we need to take in order to inform more people what affordable housing could mean.
Absolutely, and I thank you for those comments. And I'm in agreement with the education factor, and we do need to take another look at how we define affordable housing. I heard someone say once, and I kind of like this, affordable housing is simply housing that people can afford. We've got a diversity of people in Los Angeles, all income ranges, that deserve appropriate housing.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. Other members wishing to be heard? If none, then Madam Clerk, please open the roll, please close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Unanimous vote. Congratulations, and thank you for your service.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Mr. Smith.
Yes, Mr. President, can we ask number 29 go forthwith?
Forthwith on 29, and on just Commissioner confirmation, Madam Clerk, let's send that forthwith as well. Next item, please.
Next item, Mr. President, item number 2, call special for a card from the public.
Ms. Sylvia Lynn Hawkins on item number 2. Please come forward. And this is in regards to a street lighting district in the 2nd Council District. This is your opportunity to be heard.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ms. Hawkins. Concerning item number 2, the improvement and the maintenance that is going on with our MATA and gas that is really going out of business. I believe that we must be ready for the next step in case the MATA bus route goes out of business.
Ma'am, this is item number 2. We're talking about a street lighting district.
Okay, and maintenance on the street.
Street lighting.
Okay. What is dealing with escalators on the street in case of a shortage of buses, if our bus go out of...
We're not talking about transportation, ma'am. This is street lighting.
Oh, just
Please keep your comments to street lighting.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. This concludes public comment for item number 2. Any members wishing to be heard? Seeing none, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Next item, Mr. President, item number 13, call special by Councilmember Parks.
Mr. Parks.
Thank you,
Item
Mr.
13.
Chair. I'd like to ask Mr. Fujioka to come up. Yesterday at Budget and Finance, we had a very thorough evaluation of the CAO report on the end of year. And I think it's so important for each of you to be aware of exactly where we are in the budget. And also, I think what's particularly important is that there are 9 departments that are identified that at end of year had some budget difficulties of staying within their allocated budget, but that the policy chairs, certainly we'd hope that you would monitor that throughout the year, because what's important to realize is although this budget is balanced, just as we were last year, we're well over $200 million that if our revenues and our expenditures continue at the current rate, that we could be, I believe, $290 million to the deficit. So, Bill, would you give us that overview so we're fully aware of where we are at end of year?
I'll have Ray Serrano from our office start with the overview, then I'll provide some information regarding the 9 departments and also some concerns we have regarding state funding.
Good morning, Ray Serrano with the Office of the City Administrative Officer. Our year-end report, we had some good news to report. As we went through the budget process recently, we did find some additional revenue, which put us up over $48 million over budget, which was definitely good news. These increases were primarily in the telephone users tax from cellular phone services, as well as we had some increases in our property-related revenues. The downside that we had this year had to do with the state VLF reimbursement that we did not receive of $65 million. But overall, we were in a much better place than where we started at the beginning of the year. As far as on the expenditure side of things, at the mid-year, after the council actions, we had a deficit of about $42 million that we knew we were going to have to address by year-end. Departments, basically through the hiring freeze and finding other ways to fund their deficits, were able to reduce that amount by about $10 million, leaving a balance of about $32. The report that we have for you this morning basically recommends about $48 million in appropriations from the UB to address those departmental deficits of $25 million that we need to address, including police, which is the main component regarding their sworn salaries. On top of that, we have a little over $15 million for retroactive salary payments in departments where they were just unable to overcome those large deficits and fund those payments. Earlier in the year, in September, there were approximately $37 million in retro payments made, and departments, through their efforts, were able to reduce that amount to the remaining 15 that's left. In addition, we had approximately $7.5 million in shortfalls in special funds that we need to do some adjustments for departments so they can remain within budget. The largest of those were the $6.6 million for the Traffic Safety Fund. These funds, due to citation issuance being down this year, we're unfortunately have to use some general funds to make up that deficit. So, overall, we are recommending $48 million in appropriations for those items. In addition, there's roughly $43 million of transfers between departments and funds to take care of program needs and also to fund general services for various construction projects.
Very briefly, the one thing I want to draw your attention to is, you know that as a consequence of the fiscal discipline exercised by this council, we were able to transfer a very large dollar amount from this year's budget into next year that helped us close the gap that was first announced to be $300 million at the beginning of last fiscal year. Because of what we're faced with, and because of some of the changes in the local, state, and national economy, it is absolutely important that we continue to exercise that discipline. We have approximately 2.9% right now in the reserve fund as we start the next fiscal year. That money needs to stay in that reserve fund, and I'd ask that we, to the greatest extent possible, stick with the budget plan that we have in place for next fiscal year, and that we also do whatever is necessary to support the new financial or fiscal policies that were implemented this past year, which includes not using one-time money for ongoing programs. We had mentioned that there's a number of departments that we need to watch because this year, for a variety of reasons, some reasons beyond their control, but for a variety of reasons, they exceeded their budget that was approved by this council at the end of the last fiscal year. They include, this includes the police department, street services, sanitation, transportation, building and safety, planning, the city attorney, and the Department of Emergency Preparedness. There's another issue I want to highlight. If we recall, when we were putting together this year's budget over a year ago, We first announced that the prior governor, Governor Gray Davis, in his proposed budget, had a proposal that impacted our VLF revenue. And at that time, we said it would have an impact of about $40 million on the city's budget. In subsequent reports, we had to adjust that figure upward. I know in one report in February of this past year, we said it would be about $53 million. At the end of the year, it became $66 million. Now, I draw your attention to that because we have another deal on the table now with the state. And the structure of the deal has raised concerns because, as you know, we are trading sales tax for property tax. Now, the sales tax we get on a monthly basis. Property tax comes on a quarterly basis. We ask the simple question, will our March receipts include what we would normally get for April, May, and June? We have not been able to get a definitive answer to that question. And in fact, for the first time, we learned from one of our representatives at the state level is that this issue was known, but it represents a cash flow issue. Well, I think that is an unacceptable response. As a consequence, we've written letters to the state controller, the state director of finance, and we've asked for a representative with the League of Cities to clarify this issue and to give us a response in writing. Because on the low side, it could have a $40 million impact on our cash flow, and it could be as much as a $70 million impact. So we'll be tracking that. We've told your Chair of Budget and Finance will report back shortly to that committee, and then from there the full council on that issue. Basically, that's it.
Thank you very much, Bill. I just want to thank you again for your efforts on the budget and the year-end report. But again, for colleagues, the one issue I think we all can play a role in is to monitor those 9 departments and any of our departments from the policy side to ensure that those departments stay within their budget, because depending on what happens in Sacramento, it could be more severe. But even if Sacramento comes forward with what we project, we could easily be looking to, just as we did this year, find a couple $100 million in order to balance next year's budget. So thank you very much, Bill.
Thank you.
Mr. Villaraigosa.
Yes, Mr. President, members, first of all, I want to thank and congratulate the chairman, the Budget and Finance Committee, and the Budget and Finance Committee members on this report. But in fairness to the rest of the council who haven't had privy to sit on the report, I'd like to continue this for a week. You know, we got this this was passed yesterday. For those of us who don't sit on the committee, our staffs need to review this. It's a long document, and I would hope that we could have an opportunity to do that. I'm also concerned about what happens in Sacramento and what the impact will be on all of this, but at a minimum, I would hope that we get a week. Next week, you know, we're not there's no time deadline except for the end of the month, and my sense is right now that a week would be an appropriate amount of time to continue the matter.
If we do continue it, we continue it only to next Tuesday, because the only problem is that our departments will have to process the necessary paperwork to encumber these last few dollars.
Tuesday's fine.
Okay.
Mr. Cardenas.
My main question has to do with the relevancy of the policy being discussed in Sacramento. Their legislative deadline is the 15th. Their fiscal year, like ours, starts on July 1st. By then, hopefully, we will have something done and we will know where we stand. What is the general magnitude of the effect that could come down from Sacramento that hopefully would be pleasing to us, where we would actually have a minimum amount of negative effect on the number of dollars that comes from Sacramento to the city, and what's on the higher end potentially what we could be receiving, and how detrimental would that be to our finances here?
The principal concern is a cash flow issue. If in fact a portion of our money or our receipts come in the following fiscal year, in this instance, the money we would normally receive from sales tax for the months of April, May, and June, if that money doesn't come until the following fiscal year, it does represent a cash flow issue. We just need a definitive answer. We have a solution that will have an impact on the type of trans we release so that for cash flow purposes. And with that, there'll be a cost consequence. There'll be additional debt service, there'll be additional interest payments, and so we need that. Our greatest problem right now is the absence of a definitive answer from the state. They've said, well, it could be this, it could be that, but it's in the range between 40 and 70 million. And what we would have to do is borrow that money to finish the year and pay it back in the following year.
Okay, in plain English, Mr. Fujioka, what that means is, say for example, Sacramento says, in the past we've given you this money on a monthly basis, and now we're going to give it to you on a quarterly basis, same amount, hopefully same amount. We're going to give it to you on a quarterly basis or a semi-annual basis. Or for example, if you were used to getting money in July, August, and September of the first of your fiscal year, but you're not going to get the first payment until October, then what you're saying is even if we're fortunate to get the same amount of money that we expected, the fact that we're getting it later because of the cash flow problem, it could cost us tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on when they get us the money.
Which is
that
true.
the case?
It would cost us an interest, and it costs us an, well, principally interest, but the big concern...
But that interest could cost tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars based on how Sacramento affects us and when they get us our money.
Absolutely. And of equal concern, if not greater, is that when the deal, which is a good deal, I don't want to undermine the overall merits of the deal that's been struck with the state.
But not completed.
But initially, there was an assurance given that all of our money would come in the same fiscal year. That has changed, and there's a cost implication to that change.
So, as usual, the devil's in the details. And
The devil's absolutely
we
in
have
the
yet to
details.
see what the details will provide for us.
Yes.
Well, I think what the governor's proposal is, and which is being considered by the legislature, is a cut of $49 million. That results in is where we normally had been getting a level of the dollars from VLF on a monthly basis. That's going to be shifted.
That's the vehicle license fee?
Right, vehicle license fee. That will be shifted to property tax. We will not receive those payments in the months of July, August, September, October, November. We will receive that amount, a like amount, in the property tax payment in December. Hence, we will have a cash flow. The overall a cash flow problem. Yeah, and hence we will have to borrow some money, a larger borrowing for that in order to make up for that difference in cash flow. However, the rest of the deal is, if you will, is that amount of loss will go for 2 years. The governor has agreed with the league and with the counties to put on the ballot in November a constitutional amendment that would, after 2 years, return that $49 million in the form of property tax, and we would be constitutionally protected for any future cuts, both in our existing revenues and also in redevelopment. So the league and everybody has been very supportive if and when the constitutional amendment in fact gets passed, but there will be this cash flow issue for every city and every county in the state.
Well, one of the things I'd like to use this analogy, unfortunately, I think that Angelenos need to understand, when we get a hiccup out of Sacramento, that could translate into a cold or pneumonia for us, because to them, for example, Sacramento, they're dealing with a budget issue of a $103 billion budget as proposed by Governor Schwarzenegger. Here on the city of Los Angeles, we're dealing with a magnitude of a budget of just over $5 billion. So when they think that just because they delayed a few $1 million or a few tens of millions of dollars that we can handle it, or that we're willing to adopt some of their bad habits, because quite frankly, Sacramento does have some bad habits where they beg, borrow, and steal in ways that we're not willing to mirror. And the fact of the matter is, I don't want to adopt those bad habits. I want to make sure that they deal with us forthright, and they make sure that they understand that the way in which they give us our money is very important to us, and hopefully they'll pay heed to that. And the reason why I'm asking you these questions, Bill Fujioka, in front of the cameras, I think Angelenos need to understand that the same elected officials that they elect to the city council represent the same constituents, whether they send them to Sacramento or wherever else. And the bottom line is we need to understand that this really does affect our ability to fix our roads, to pave our streets, to be able to pay for police officers and firefighters and things of that nature. So it really does hit home at the core issues that we're responsible for when Sacramento doesn't work things out in a way that's fair to us. Thank you.
Mr. Reyes.
Most of the questions I've had have been answered by my colleagues, but I do appreciate having a little bit more time to look at it. I know in many instances these are year-end adjustments, that's what it is. But if there are ways that we can strategize to deal with some of the, given the bigger picture point of view, some of the nuances of what's happened in our districts, that would be appreciated too. So appreciate that.
Ms. Gruhl.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you both, Mr. Villaraigosa and Mr. Cardenas, for the questions. And I'd second Mr. Villaraigosa's motion. If a week for us to do it on Tuesday would be great. And I noted that in the original submission, I think the report that was dated May 28th, it goes to the chair of the Budget Committee and the president of the council. Is there a possibility that that, again, wouldn't necessarily take into effect what happens in the Budget Committee, that that document as well could be shared with the remainder of the city council members so we have an opportunity to review that in the next version? I think that would be extraordinarily helpful. And the other item, and I know Mr. Ludlow has some questions as well, relative to all of the, item, I don't know how many there are, 30 some, 40 some odd, maybe even 50 some odd instructions. These items that were passed by this body in the Budget Committee, and they're just implementation. Are there some new items in here that are different in transferring of funds that have not been previously before this body?
This is our year-end report for the current fiscal year. What was before the body, the entire body was, of course,
next year's
proposed.
budget.
But this one has only been approved by your Budget and Finance Committee and is now here for the full council's approval. So there are some items here. It's the steps necessary to end the year.
And I understand that, and I guess the question is, some of these items, issues that we discussed in next year's budget that we're implementing now, and again, maybe it's us just having the opportunity to read this between now and next Tuesday and ask some of those additional questions. But do any of these actions impact next year's budget or decisions that we made a few weeks ago?
In some respects, yes, but in others, it's just the actions necessary to close the books for this year. And so actions such as money to purchase some equipment for some of the departments, it's part of an ongoing program that is part of next year's budget. And so if you like, we can, because it's quite a lengthy report, I'd be happy between now and next Tuesday to come in with staff to go through the report
That
with
would
you.
be great, and it'd be great. And I think even
And
with the...
to anyone,
the
we offer that to all offices.
The 47 items, even to say these are, to separate them
Understand.
into different categories might be helpful as well. And I guess the last question, I think it's what Mr. Cardenas brought up about the cash flow and the impact on the city. Will you be able to, at some point, identify for us the impact of that 4 or 5 months, as Mr. Deaton mentioned, that we will not have this money and the interest that we will lose during that period of time, and again, how that will impact the city?
Yes, we're working on that now, and we just sent the letters out to the 3 agencies I had mentioned. The concern is that at the time we were putting the budget together, we were given the assurance that the money would come in this year, and that's how we structured the budget. Knowing that it's not going to come until the subsequent fiscal year would have changed how we structured the budget, and that's a huge concern.
Yeah. So. Okay. Great. I'm sure we will meet with your staff and schedule something between now and next Tuesday if we have any questions, but I think you see where we're coming from on some of our issues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ludlow.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think most of my immediate questions were asked by my colleagues. I'll just echo in on the sense of timing. For those of us that just arrived on the council this year, this is our first time going through it, and to get this document a little bit before this morning's council meeting. I'm certain, Mr. Fujioka, each one of these items you have, and obviously it came through the committee, unanimous vote of our committee, if I see correctly, with the chairman bringing it in today. But I do think the opportunity to actually look at a couple of these things. One of the items in here is just the specificity of the year-end budget adjustments with relation to the actual budget deficit after all departments have, I would assume, have sort of reported in or have made their final requests for payroll and so forth. There's two numbers here. One indicates after the expenditure deficit totaling $51 million, included in that amount were projected expenditure deficits of $59 million that were later revised upwards to $73 million, with a portion of that $31 million being funded, I would assume, in this report, leaving a potential deficit of $41 million. Then later in the final document, it indicates total appropriations in the unappropriated balance is $47.9 million. I'm just confused on those two last figures. I think I follow the chart there, but could you shed a little light on which figure is actually the year-end budget deficit?
What happened when the report was presented, the mid-year report was presented to council, we are looking at deficits of about $74 million in departments. And the increase, what had really bumped it up from when we published that report, was the police overtime issue. Since that time, there are other actions. We funded the $32 million of it, bringing down to $41, and those expenditures, expenditure deficits in departments have come down further. But what's bumped that number back up had to do with some special fund shortfalls where we needed to inject some general fund money to make up for those special fund shortfalls, and that added another $7.5 million. And then on top of the expenditure deficits, we knew we were going to have problems in several department salary accounts because of the retroactive salary payments made early in the year. We were trying to have departments through the hiring freeze and look at other measures to bring that number down. So at the end of the day, the total appropriations for departments is the $48 million.
So that's the actual number that we ought to look at as we go.
That's where we are today.
This. Okay, and then just the last question is. There are obviously a couple items in here, and I just wondered if we could, just for edification, you could mention the authorization of the fire department to expend $78 million from the current appropriations. I know we just had a discussion about paying overtime or comp time of firefighters. Is that figure reflective of that, or is it not reflective of that?
That's correct. In attachment 8, there are savings within other fire department accounts where money will be moved to the constant staffing.
So you've accounted for that in this document
that is correct.
As well? Okay. So is the motion at this point to hold until Tuesday?
Yes, and I don't think there's any objection to that. People have been asking a few questions and asking for additional information before next Tuesday. Mr. Cárdenas?
When I was asking questions, Mr. Fujioka pointed out how crucial it is that we, or was it Mr. Deaton, pointed out how crucial it is for us to finally have a constitutional amendment that will protect us from Sacramento taking money. I think the Angelenos need to understand what the magnitude of this issue has been for well over 10 years now. Since the early 1990s, Sacramento has left out about $10 billion to local cities and counties and other districts like us. In addition to that, it adds up to well over $1 billion a year, close to $2 billion a year that they are taking away from cities. When you look at counties and special districts, it's close to $2 billion or more that they're not giving back to us. The reason why it's so important, people need to be reminded and understand that every level of government has different responsibilities. So when they don't send us those billions of dollars, that's less money. For example, Sacramento doesn't hire your local firefighter. Sacramento does not hire your local police officer. It's we, the city of Los Angeles, that hires the LAPD officers and pays for their cars and all their equipment. It's us, the city of Los Angeles, and I think perhaps the only city in California that actually has their own paramedics that are paid and housed within the city itself. So my point is, it's really important for people to understand that where you send your money and which government keeps that money and how they put it to use is very critical. And on those 2 points alone, when it comes to firefighters and police officers, we need that money. We need to understand that Sacramento needs to give us that money. And as a matter of fact, Council President Padilla has been our representative in the city to help bring that agreement that they've agreed with Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger already, that we will have a constitutional amendment to protect us into the future. And not only did he represent us in the city, he's actually the vice president of the California League of Cities, and that's why he's protecting us. And the reason why I point that out, I was in the legislature myself, and the city of Los Angeles is the biggest city in the state. And many, many times when we're at the negotiating table, people want to treat the city of Los Angeles in a way that hurts us dramatically. So it's really important that we have people at the table. And I just want to say that the League of Cities came up with a compromise. Not all cities like every detail of it. There are many details of it that the city of Los Angeles had to have in that agreement, and we had to fight for that. Alex Padilla was the person fighting for us in that room, and believe me, it's not fun being the representative of the city of Los Angeles when you're talking about all the other cities and all the different interests and the different ways in which they think what is fair.
Thank you, Mr. Cardenas. Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to ask Mr. Carey to come up. I appreciate Mr. Villaraigosa's concern on just getting this lengthy document. I just want to make sure that there's sufficient time, if this is held till Monday, to get all of these authorization. I think we have about 47 instructions in this document.
My concern is that I'm dealing with the mayor's office on a day-to-day basis at the end of a fiscal year relative to signatures on ordinances and transfers. I have been advised by the mayor's staff that the mayor will not be at City Hall. He still will be in the state from Tuesday. He will return on Friday of next week. My concern with this kind of document is there may be some payrolls that could potentially be missed. I assume we could transfer some money around, but again, you're talking, I'm just not aware of that. That's why I raised the concern with you, council member, that timeliness in terms of getting the mayor's approval on this document is somewhat critical in terms of closing out the year and meeting salary and payroll.
Mr. Fujioka, let me ask you a practical question. If we move forward and approve this and basically came back at a later date, as Mr. Villaraigosa has asked us, we can still amend issues after the approval?
Yes, we could do that.
Okay. We can ask that we approve this today and then reschedule it for Tuesday so that we can have that reviewed if there's amendments made that day. But we can go forward and approve it forthwith so we can get the signatures and get many of these instructions moved forward. I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. Other members wishing to be heard on this item? At this time, if not, then I believe it's without objection. We will continue this item to next Tuesday and allow members sufficient time to review the report with the balance of what Mr. Parks just said.
The issue is that if we hold it to Tuesday, I think Mr. Carey's concerned we won't get all those instructions. I was asking that we approve it today and so that all these instructions go forward, but then reschedule so that if we have to amend something, we can do it Tuesday.
Mr. Villaraigosa, you okay with that?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's approve the specific actions of the report before us. What's before us for information only can be continued until Tuesday. How's that?
I believe he wanted to approve the entire report as it is, and if, as a consequence of our discussions with individual council offices, if there are any necessary amendments, we'd bring those back individually. But the report in its entirety would go forward now because of the timing issue.
I'm looking to the person on your right here in terms of proper agendizing for discussion on Tuesday, Mr. Clerk.
You will approve the report, and then it will be this report that will be coming back for a discussion and possible amendment of items that we have previously approved today. This will allow us to go forward and get the mayor's approval, I assume he'll approve this, such that payrolls can be met, contracts can be paid, and we can close out the fiscal year. Subject to Mr. Fujioka briefing the individual members of council, if the individual members have amendments that they want to make, we can make those next Tuesday and go through the same process, assuming it requires a mayor's signature on it.
I think everybody's
Friday.
clear. I think everybody's clear on the spirit and intent of what we're about to do. I just want to make sure that we verbalize it appropriately to act today on what you need acted upon today, and that we can still put the proper placeholder as an agenda item for Tuesday.
You'll be able to put some of the brakes on at a later date, but this will allow the city to move forward in closing out the fiscal year and meeting payrolls.
That's clearly everybody's understanding and intent here. Mr. Dutta?
What I don't understand, Mr. Carey. What's the difference between the two? What do departments get by us approving a report that they can't implement versus us?
No, you were going to approve a report that will be implemented, assuming the mayor signs it. My concern is if you delay it till Tuesday, the mayor is not going to be in Los Angeles for a period of time. He is not out of the state. Had we not amended the charter,
who would then have the authorization to sign it?
The mayor has to sign as long as he's in the state. And he will not be here available from Tuesday through Thursday.
All right, I got that part. I guess what I don't understand here is, and again, we could talk for a while about how we get the mayor's signature in state, but that's another discussion. But I'm not clear on.
My concern is that many departments are going to be running out of money and cannot meet their payroll.
I understand that. So the question I have is, if what Mr. Villaraigosa has asked for and Ms. Gruhl has seconded is that we're not comfortable making a decision on several millions of dollars in action today, if you all are saying, okay, we got that, vote to approve this, and we'll ask questions on Tuesday.
And you can amend that. The question is, do you think you're going to amend anything that will affect the payrolls of the operating departments of the city of Los Angeles?
What is it that gets done between now and Tuesday that can actually get undone on Tuesday?
Next Tuesday, you can come back and look at the report and amend and undo the appropriation, undo the transfer, whatever you choose to do. You're still going to have to get a mayor's signature, assuming that it requires the mayor's signature.
So the transfers and the trigger mechanism that we release right now, you're saying no monies get released?
No, monies will get released. The mayor will sign the document. Monies will be transferred so departments can meet their payroll.
Well, colleagues, let me just say this. I saw this report just a little while ago. I appreciate the caution, and I understand what is being said here very clearly, but I hope everybody in the chambers understands. I feel a little bit like there's a gun to our head right now, and Ms. Gruhl asked a very pointed question a minute ago, which is, how do we know that, and I think Mr. Cardenas raised it as well, that the decisions that we make right now, I don't know what this totals. What's the total on this item? If you added up I mean, should I read this as a $47 million item?
The $48 million is direct
That's what
appropriations.
I don't know, colleagues. I'm just a little concerned, and if we need to take a little bit of time here to walk a few of us through the details, I got people pretty frustrated as to some of the items that were in the budget, and we're trying to explain how we're keeping certain services going and how we're keeping certain departments going, and we're going to move an item with 5 minutes of discussion that's 47, almost $50 million. I'm a little still uncomfortable and unclear about that.
Mr. Villaraigosa.
we go. Sound is back. Yes, I thought I understood that Tuesday would give us enough time to review this matter. We're not meeting on Friday. Give us a few days to review this matter. I'm not sure I understand. First of all, if this was of such urgency, why couldn't we have passed this last week so that we've got an opportunity to review it for a week? I don't think it's unreasonable for a few of us who don't sit on budget and finance to say, look, I want my staff to review this item. I want to do what, and I certainly respect the point that you're making here, that it's going to be difficult. Why couldn't the paperwork be done? Mr. Ludlow asked the question, if the mayor's going to be in the state, why couldn't we arrange to find the mayor wherever he is and take it to him? Is that something, I don't think, that's something that he'd have a problem with. Absent being in the hospital or on an operating table, it seems to me that, if he's in state, you get him a document and he signs it. I don't think it's that difficult. I think
The mayor's staff has just advised me that the mayor should be in town, so.
Okay. I thought so, And thank you, Mayor Hahn, for confirming that, because my hope and expectation would have been that it wouldn't be that difficult to find him, to get him the document, and to have him sign it. I'm only asking for a few days. I have no question in my mind that this is all done appropriately and the right decisions were made. I would just like a few days of deliberation and review, because this is an important document. And I would hope that, those folks who, who sit on the committee would understand that, we'd like to be able to see this for a few days.
Mr. Parks?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If the mayor's going to be here, I have no concern of holding it up to Tuesday, but I just want to remind everybody, this is not the budget. This is merely closing out everybody's accounts that have either been over their last year budget and they're just putting money in order for them to make their accounts. So this is shuffling money inside the city, is not allocating money in the sense of budgetary concerns. So, but no, if we can get the signatures and it doesn't stop the allocations and the 47 instructions, then we can hold this until Tuesday.
Now, is there any objection? Mr. Clerk, Mr. CAO?
I'm fine, sir.
Okay. Mr.
And
Parks?
again, we're willing to
Then
meet with anyone.
the entire matter carries over to next Tuesday's meeting. But thank you for the discussion, colleagues. Do your homework, come with questions. Tuesday is the day. Colleagues, before proceeding to the next item, we have received a very special guest into City Council chambers. Let me recognize Councilmember Cardenas for an introduction.
Good afternoon, members. I just wanted to take this opportunity to recognize what a wonderful event that's going on right here in our midst in the city of Los Angeles. I have with me Joaquin Jacome, Minister of Commerce and Trade of the Republic of Panama. And the fact of the matter is there are over 200 trade delegates here all week here in the city of Los Angeles, talking and working on for the first time, a trade agreement which has been negotiated here in the city of Los Angeles. It's not been finalized, but it's the first time we have these kinds of negotiations going on here in our wonderful city. And there are over 200 delegates from around the Americas here this week working on something that's very important. We all know that here between the Port of Long Beach, for example, and the Port of Los Angeles, we've created one of the perhaps the third largest commerce ports or entity in the entire world. So we are in fact a place that people like to do business through and with, and certainly I want to commend the mayor's office and the rest of the people of the city of Los Angeles who have brought this delegation to Los Angeles to make sure that we tell the rest of the world we know how to do business, we welcome it, we want to be responsible, and we want to work with you to make sure that we continue to make it happen at a pace that it's been unprecedented unprecedented throughout the world. So with that, without further ado, I'd like to give Joaquin Jacom, Minister of Commerce and Trade of the Republic of Panama, an opportunity to greet us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I am honored to receive this award. But first of all, let me transmit a good message from all the Panamanians that are here with us. As the member just said, we are heading a delegation of more than 100 Panamanians between private and governmental officials to come to LA to negotiate the second round of the free trade agreement with the United States and Panama. Panama, a small nation, 2.9 million Panamanians, close allies of the United States in different fronts, security, international trade, and we are very grateful for the opportunity and the host and the mayor's office and all the efforts they have been doing to make us feel at home. We are very confident that we are going to make great progress during this round of the FTA negotiations. I'm looking forward to have delegations from the mayor's office and the business sector of LA visiting Panama to be able to reciprocate all these great gestures you have made with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Gracias.
Thank you and welcome to Los Angeles. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Next item, Mr. President, item number 39, call special by Councilmember Han.
Ms. Han, item 39.
Thank you, Mr. President, colleagues. And I would like to actually call to the table representative from Bureau of Street Lighting to explain one of the issues. Colleagues, this is the reason that every time a lighting district assessment comes up on the agenda, I continue mine in my district because sometime last year, it came to my attention that many times when we were sending ballots out to neighborhoods for them to vote yes or no on whether or not they wanted to be assessed for street lighting, the ballot was very confusing. The ballot had language that talked about maintenance, and to the average person, maintenance meant, I don't know, keeping the light pole clean of graffiti or cutting the weeds around a light pole. It didn't mean the lights would remain on or we would turn the lights off. Many times a developer came in and actually built the infrastructure for our light standards, and yet we told the people that they had to be assessed for the maintenance. And many people said, well, why should I vote yes on maintenance of light poles when in fact the word maintenance translated to lights on or lights off. And I had a couple of neighborhoods, one in Watts and one in San Pedro, that voted no and didn't realize that that meant they would have no lights in their neighborhood, and it was very confusing. Also, a lot of people didn't mail the ballot back in or didn't understand it enough to vote one way or another, but if even one person sent back a ballot that said no, that would mean the entire neighborhood would not have their lights on. So I've been working with the Bureau of Street Lighting, along with inputs from neighborhood councils and community members, to come up with a ballot that actually makes more sense. We've come up one that we think is a more user-friendly ballot that has graphics that kind of show lights on, lights off. It was very interesting. One of the community members, in one of the community meetings, there was just a member of the community that said, by the way, you might be interested in the fact that I've got a PhD and did my thesis on making government documents readable, which was fascinating to me that we even have a degree in that issue. So she actually contributed her help to coming up with a document that was more readable. And the other issue that we had was that our departments, who sometimes owned the majority of property in an area and would ultimately pay the majority of the assessment, have a policy to remain neutral and not vote. And I also felt that that might need to be relooked at and not necessarily that we would have a policy citywide that every department voted yes, but they would look at this a little differently. They would get involved in the community outreach. They would get involved in the presentation before neighborhood council to find out how the neighborhood felt about lights being either on or off, and then they could vote. But just to remain neutral, again, sort of skewed the equation, even when the department would be paying for the majority of the assessment, depending on their frontage in that particular neighborhood. So, colleagues, I think this is a better ballot. We have instructed the department to do better outreach. Many times, again, churches did not understand what was going on and said they would have been happy to have even held community meetings in their church to help with the outreach to a particular neighborhood. So we're going to have better outreach. It's a clearer ballot. It can be printed in other language. Right now it comes in Spanish and English. It has graphics, again, that are very clear on when you vote yes, you have lights on, and it shows a nice lighted neighborhood. And when you vote no, you have a very dark neighborhood where crime can happen. So we're making it clear to people that lights are a good thing, but understanding when you vote for it, you're assessed a particular amount of money. The reason, and I would like for us to vote on this today because I have a lot of lighting assessment districts that I've been holding up until we approve this new ballot and this new outreach. But I asked somebody from the department, from Bureau of Street Lighting, to explain one change in a policy that apparently will be addressed in the new ballots, but it was a policy change that was made in terms of how we assess property owners. Historically, we have assessed them by their frontage, and that has been as long as I can remember. But the department has made a policy change, and I'd like for you to possibly explain what that policy change is and why the department made that to coincide with the new ballots.
Certainly. Good afternoon, council members. My name is Jim Quigley. I'm with the Bureau of Street Lighting, an Associate 3. And I have been working... Okay, thank you. I've been working kind of peripherally with this. Now, the change from the benefit footage to the equivalent units happened prior to the work that the committee that you organized to work on this. And the idea was that the calculation for the benefit footage was fine along the front of the street, but on a corner lot, the calculation was very confusing, it was difficult, and it was time-consuming. And the idea to move to equivalent units, whereby an assessment is made based on whether the property is a residential, a commercial, that sort of thing, it was in line with what the rest of the state is doing. It's a very efficient, it's a much quicker process, and we felt it was much fairer. And the idea being that we can quickly get these ballots out, particularly for the private development things, so that they don't get built if the people don't want them. And the idea of removing streetlights when people vote them down is a horrible public relations deal. So we get the vote done, we get it taken care of before the construction starts. And that was the idea behind it. And the equivalent units taking from the...
So this new formula basically puts us in line with
the county and all the other major cities in the state. And
Okay.
I think it may be that we were the last major entity that was using the benefit footage.
Okay, well, thank you
Thank
for
you.
that description of the policy change. Again, colleagues, I think this is a better way. Again, information is knowledge is power, and if people have the information, they can still vote no if they decided they don't want to be assessed, they don't want the lights, but at least it's clear and the information is much clearer, the outreach will be better, and people will understand that they indeed do have to turn the ballots back in, and they can clearly understand what their vote yes means and what their vote no means. So I would urge you to approve this new friendly ballot. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Knowledge is information is power. You're an angel in a city of angels. Before we get to our next speaker, Mr. Padilla, we did have one public speaker card. I'm going to ask Mr. Jim McQuiston to give his public comment, and then we will hear from Mr. Padilla, Ms. Gruhl, and Mr. Zion.
Jim McQuiston, East Hollywood Community Association. I want to congratulate Councilmember Hahn in spearheading this effort and working it through. I think she served as a good model if it was clear to her. I'm not saying that she doesn't see these things through, but what I'm saying is that she really puts her soul into these things, and I congratulate her on this. I do think that the new ballot and the new handouts that goes with the ballot are much clearer. I think ordinary people now can understand them. The only thing that I did find when I went through it was this change in the method, which is a sea change in making this new procedure. And I don't really believe that it's exactly fair, because if you have a large property with a deep lot and you have a house with a big backyard, you're being given a little extra weight as to whether you have streetlights, and your neighbors who don't have that don't have as much say as to whether we have streetlights or not. So there is a problem of equal protection. And I understand the reason, maybe corner lots, but we don't have as many corner lots as we have interior lots. So we're still giving the corner lots a little bit different treatment than we're giving the internal lots. After all, if the street light district goes around the corner, we can still measure those lines. The city engineer knows how long the blocks are. There are maps. Everything is in a computer. You just press a button. So it doesn't really take that much more time to figure out the street light lengths on the streets. But this is another issue. It's not the issue that's before us today. And I do urge this council to take this up, because I think it is important. We do want people to pay for what they're getting. And if they're not paying for illumination in their backyards, then something is not correct.
Thank you very much, Mr. Quiston. Our next speaker is Mr. Padilla, to be followed by Ms. Gruhl and Mr. Zine. Mr. Padilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And colleagues, I want to begin by, again, thanking Councilmember Han for her persistence on this issue and for making this a priority, not just for her district, but for the entire city. I have a couple of questions, but first wanted to ask you if there's anything else that you wanted to highlight from your report. I've read the committee report. You have 7 recommendations. I know you've responded to some of Ms. Han's specific questions, but you have a whole package of recommendations overall. I don't know if you wanted to make a little bit more comprehensive presentation to the council.
Councilmember, I was not actually part of making the report.
Okay.
And I was very peripheral to it. I have some knowledge, but I don't have detailed knowledge, and I didn't write it. I would hesitate to address too many particular issues.
Let me try asking you some specific
Yes,
questions, because I think we're going a long way. And the first question actually for you, Ms. Han, that flyer that you said, is that the actual format of the ballot itself, or is that an insert that comes along with the ballot? Okay, and now has the face of the ballot itself changed to make it more friendly and readable? And okay, so that's, I think, an important clarification. In recommendation number 5, you say, direct the Bureau of Street Lighting to contact the majority property owner or owners and or the developer when feasible to assure that the right person is receiving the ballot package. And Ms. Han, you raised a certain quirk in our own city family, that if GSD owns a lot or if Rec and Parks owns a lot, we have a policy of remaining neutral. And I'm hoping that through our actions here, we're changing that. But I know in my own district, we've come across a couple of lighting districts where there's a school adjacent or there's a county park adjacent, and sometimes the school district or the county or the MTA or the state of California will vote no on one of these. Has that been discussed, and is there a way to remedy that? And if you can hold my time for additional questions.
Yes, and I am involved in that outreach, and what I'm trying to do is that when we see the ballots coming up, I'm actually trying to contact a responsible person. And a lot of times what we have from land records is we have a post office box with, a corporation or an entity like LAWA, and we mail it there. No individual is responsible for making the decision. And so one of the things that I've been working on now is trying to find out, like for world airports, that's an excellent example. It's such a huge place, it's very difficult to find the person who actually makes this decision, and this is going to be part of what I'm doing, very, very much involved now in trying to say, okay, sir, are you aware this is coming? Are you aware of how important this is, and that you vote, not only yes, but that you actually vote?
Well, it would seem to me, colleagues, that we can Ms. Han even changed the code to, at least for the street lighting function, let's just yank it out of the airport. Let's yank it out of GSD. Let's yank it out of Recreation Parks and designate one citywide street lighting person for our votes. It's all part of the city family, and I got to imagine that can make it much easier and efficient and effective for us all. That's internal to the city. I still have the outstanding question of what happens to non-city governmental entities, the county, the school district, the state, MTA, anybody else?
It's much the same situation in that I'm simply trying to contact them. I have a good contact with the LA Unified School District, and they have decided that they're going to be voting with us all the time, so long as the ballot gets to the proper person. We did have a situation where the ballot didn't get to the proper person, and somebody from their real estate division voted no, which is a horrific thing for a school.
Well, again, I want to encourage you to keep up the fight in trying to find the right person there. I would love to work with you and Ms. Hahn in reaching out to our colleagues on those respective governing bodies. If those entities can establish as a matter of policy an automatic yes vote unless directed otherwise, so that we don't have to battle with finding the right person and what if that person retires and who comes in next and constant educating. If we can just systemically and systematically make the change, again, I think that'd be more effective and more efficient. I also had a question and concern on recommendation number 6, colleagues, which reads, direct the Bureau of Street Lighting to process the assessment ballot proceedings before streetlights are installed for all private development projects. And while I see how that may make it a little bit more efficient or be a safeguard for the street lighting assessment process, the only concern I would have is if that has a significant and negative impact on the developments themselves, if it extends the development project timeline or increases project costs, if it's an affordable housing project that we're advocating for in our district, and all of a sudden this ramps out their time frame for construction 2 months because of this sort of process, or if it's a commercial project that's creating jobs. I hope we're going to be able to, this seems like a hard and fast rule change, and I don't know if we've built in some flexibility to go either on a case-by-case basis or at least category-by-category basis to find out what makes the most sense in any particular assessment proceeding.
I do believe with the equivalent unit changes, our ability to process these 218 ballot things, we'll be able to do it fast enough so that it will in no way impede the permitting process or the construction process of the project.
Okay, if I can request a report back on that just to understand that in detail, only because I know we have a lot of housing going up in my district and we have some very large-scale economic development projects that are coming down the pike. But overall, colleagues, I just, again, want to commend Councilmember Hahn for her prioritization of this particular issue. It is so very important. In my district, we've worked well with the department to go out there. We've rolled up our sleeves. We've gone door to door. We've had, well above and beyond the required number of community hearings and educational sessions so that it is clear to people when it's difficult to understand what they're voting on. And knock on wood, we have yet to lose a vote in my district, and we just succeeded in what I've been told is the largest street lighting project in the last 10 years for the city. I know it's difficult. We've also just recently done away with public relations contracts, and I'll wrap up with this, that have sometimes helped in the past with educating the public, and we're putting more of that responsibility on city staff. But every community is different and unique, so that true department, community, council office partnership is the most effective way to get these things done.
Thank you very much, Mr. Padilla. Our next speaker is Ms. Gruhl, to be followed by Mr. Zine, Mr. Labange, and Ms. Hahn for a second time. Ms. Gruhl.
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti, and I don't want to repeat all the items that my colleagues have talked about, but do want to acknowledge Ms. Hahn for her leadership on this issue. We've sat here very frequently talking about this issue for the last couple of years, and the fact that many of our residences are confused. We, in my district, have actually sent our staff out, and I'm sure, Mr. Padilla, you may have done this too, to have a success, which is to walk and actually talk to each of the neighbors and explain to them the process, because we felt it was so critically important to get lights on that street. And we were successful in doing that, but it is a huge time commitment, and we believe with this information as drafted, with the cooperation of Ms. Hahn and your department, that we're going to be able to have a much more, I think, response, a better response from these neighborhoods to do this and explain to them the cost and the benefit at that time. I share some of the concerns that Mr. Padilla mentioned relative to the other governmental agencies, and I think all of us would like to see and will similarly lobby our colleagues and other entities to say, we need you to design a system that is going to make this much more palatable and quickly accomplished. So I wanted to stand up and say this is critically important, and particularly in the Northeast Valley, where we don't have as many lights, and it's really, I think, an important aspect in safety. So I stand in support of this motion today, or this actual report, and I look forward to its implementation. And probably, I don't know if it includes in the report, Ms. Hahn, a report back on our success or any other issues, but we might want to at some point request a report back to say, have there been any bumps in the road, any changes we need to make to ensure the success of this program. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Ms. Grewal. Our next speaker is Mr. Zine.
Thank you, Mr. President. Janice, I remember we discussed this at Neighborhood Schools, and Phil, smile, Phil Reed, the street man, the street lighting man. I remember how complicated it was when we were reviewing and trying to figure out how the residents of Los Angeles, the business community, would be able to decipher exactly what it said. We couldn't even understand it, and we're supposed to know how the system works. So this change has taken a long time to come about, and I think it will benefit a lot of people. I know it will save a lot of money in doing reballoting, because many times when people realize the lights are going to be turned off, then they want to vote again, so we've got to go to the expense of doing a second ballot and mailing all that out and going through that challenge. So, Janice, congratulations. I know that you've been very passionate about showing the light and keeping crime down and giving the people what they're paying for. And to street lighting, it's a challenging task to do that. I know that we did a project along Ventura Boulevard to bring up those lights to standard, and that assessment district continually builds a fund, and then that money goes back in to reinvest in those communities, so it stays in the communities where they're investing. And this whole process, I think, is going to benefit all the communities of Los Angeles, and congratulations to the department for coming up with a plan. And I know that Mike Carey's office, the city clerk, I sure get involved, and the city attorney gets involved, and the legalese has to be involved. But when that person opens that envelope, they got to realize if they don't support this, they're not going to have street lights, they're not going to keep the lights on, and the consequence of having that in the neighborhood, obviously negative. So long overdue. I'm glad it's finally come about, and the challenge is now ahead to get these out and get all these assessment districts in line so street lighting can do the job they need to do. And if the street lights are out in the community, all they have to do is call 311. And I understand the process now goes directly from the ambassador at 311 to street lighting, so they can respond in a very, very short time to get that light turned on again. So if the lights are out for whatever reason, 311, and we ask the people of Los Angeles to use that 311 number, no matter where it is, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, those phone ambassadors are there to take care of you. Thank you very much, and thanks for being here, Phil.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. And fresh from the new dedication, the Hollywood Bowl shell, Mr. Tom LaBonge.
Well, thank you very much. And your fine Deputy Lynn was there representing you well, Mr. Garcetti, and thank you. Just a couple quick questions here. On other government entities, does the federal government pay the assessment on things? Do they pay?
I do not believe they do.
Yeah, federal and state government doesn't unless it's a Caltrans job. So we understand that. The school district does pay?
Yes, sir.
Phil Reed, the director of street lighting. I remember years ago, Mr. Garcetti, they wanted to build a post office, and I tried to extract from the Postal Service a traffic light on the corner, and the man said to me, he almost said, a young man, he said to me, I'm here as a courtesy from the federal government. I'm not here to tell you anything but what we want to do, you know, and he explained the levels of government. The federal government doesn't necessarily pay an assessment or want.
They do not pay,
They
no.
do not pay.
Higher levels of government have the choice not to pay.
Right.
But with the new Proposition 218, the state of California, the county of Los Angeles, if we send out the ballot and it benefits their property, they will vote yes and pay.
And the school district?
The school district pays, yes.
Good, okay, so I just want to get that clarification on that. Now let me ask you another question. Churches, temples, other religious institutions, if it's voted, they pay, right?
That's
They
correct.
don't pay property tax, but they pay assessments,
Yes,
correct?
they do.
Benefit assessments, so we have that clear information. Mr. Garcetti, I thank you for the moments that you gave me to address our fine Bureau of Street Lighting. Thank you.
We thank you for your testimony, Mr. Labange. Our last speaker is Ms. Hahn to take us home.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I do think we are a lot further along than where we were when I first came on this issue in terms of readability and the ability of average people to understand this ballot. It does seem like there's a couple things that I hope you've been hearing that we would like to get a report back on. I think we should approve this new ballot today, but I do think Jim McQuiston brings up an interesting issue just about the change in policy. It is a sea change, as he said, in terms of how we formulate the assessment, and if maybe we take that up again in our committee and just get a better sense of why that policy change was made and address some of his concerns that it does seem to be unfair to property owners that may have a bigger backyard and they're not really using more of their street light as a result of that.
We'd be happy to address that.
And then there's a couple other things we'd like to have a report back. And I do share Mr. Padilla's concern that this not in any way impede on any new development. However, I think ultimately the cost associated with building, putting in light standards and then actually having to remove them is something, and by the way, who would assume that cost?
If the lights are removed, we remove them.
We assume that cost.
And then if the property owners in the future want to have lights, we will put them back at no cost.
Right, so we're really taking the short end on that one. So it does make a lot more sense to have that vote taken before the developer puts in the light standards. And again, that is made very clear on this communication that we make to people, is that in fact the developer is paying to install the light poles, but you are responsible for paying for the actual lights to be kept on. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate your work. I know it was difficult and tedious, and we sent the draft back many times. We get back to the drawing board and start over. This still isn't good enough, and I think we've really improved the way we communicate with Angelenos. One of the things I would also ask, maybe the department, sounds like this is going to be a full-time job figuring out the contact person. Some of these, as Mr. Padilla said, non-city entities. We certainly have a few board members right here that sit on the MTA. I would think a letter to one of them asking them to have the MTA designate a person in the future that would receive this kind of communication. I think we kind of go down the list with LAUSD and everyone and send an official letter from the city talking about the new system, talking about the new outreach, talking about the need for these entities to get involved in neighborhood council outreach, and to designate a person that these ballots, this communication would go to in the future, I think would be very helpful. Okay. So I would like for the department to do that as well. Thank you on that, colleagues. I would like to have your support on approving this today.
Right. Thank you very much, Ms. Hahn. All right, with a couple of reports back, if we can open the roll on the item. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Thank you very much. If there's no objection, I'd like to reconsider item 44, which we continued for a vote. If we can open the roll on reconsideration. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Okay, if there's nobody wishing to speak, if we can open the roll on 44. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved as well. Next item.
Next item, Mr. President, item number 45, call special for a card from the public.
Okay. Now is item 45. I'd like to invite, we have two speakers, Michael Lawrence Dickerson to come forward on item 45, to be followed by Ms. Sylvia Lynn Hawkins. Welcome, Mr. Dickerson, again.
I guess the notion of festivals and the celebration of the same, whether it's funded by the Cultural Affairs Department or, I guess more specifically, if it's funded by the city and city monies go into it and it's something that's for the community, it's important that it go on. But I think one thing that should always be considered in putting on these festivals is that some kind of real economic benefit fall to the community where it exists. Maybe something a little bit more than just 15 community workers' jobs where you would work them for 2 days for 12 hours a day and then give them $60, and then everybody else involved with the festival, you know, gets a big check and drives back out of the area and they don't even stop for gas. So I think one thing that should always be factored into any one of these festivals is run by the city or run by something that's funded by the city, is that some of the people around where it goes on, or more than just some of the people or one or two of the people, get some real benefit from it, as opposed to we're putting on a show, we're collecting up a bunch of money in the name of your community, and then we're getting out of here with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dickerson. Appreciate your testimony. Ms. Sylvia Lynn Hawkins? Ms. Hawkins here? If not, okay, that closes public comment on this item. Any members wishing to be heard? If not, please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That item is approved. We also have a special agenda, is that correct?
Yes, Mr. President, you do have a special agenda, and there is a special motion. Do you wish to take that up before going
Let's
into
take the special motion first. Is that a Rule 23?
Yes, Rule 23
Okay.
is presented by Garcetti for Councilmember Perry and seconded by Councilmember Grohl.
Mr. City Attorney?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yesterday, it was learned that all tenants in 100 registered housing units at the Bristol Hotel were evicted. Immediate action is required to provide emergency tenant relocation assistance to such a large number of evictees. Council must first make findings pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2 before considering the substantive motion.
Okay. Anybody on the findings? If not, if we can please open the roll on the findings, close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Okay. This is before us. Ms. Gruhl?
I know, Mr. Garcetti, you made this motion. I seconded it for Ms. Perry, who's not here today. I just want to acknowledge her staff's work on trying to address the fact that 100 individuals, families were evicted, no notice, nothing, last night from this apartment SRO. And so this is really critically important that we act upon this today and send a message as well that it's unacceptable, and go forward on any appropriate legal action I think that we can to support those tenants that were evicted. I think so devastatingly, some of their belongings are still in those apartment units. So hopefully we will, as indicated here, work with the city attorney to move quickly on this item. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much, Ms.
Thank you,
Gruhl.
Ms. Perry's office.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Perry, in absentia, for your work on this. If we can open the roll, please, on this item. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Forthwith on that, please. If we can go to the special agenda. Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Cardenas, Garcetti, Gruhl, Han, Labarge, Ledlow, Miskowski, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Smith, Villaraigosa, Weisstein, Padilla, 12 members present, and a quorum, Mr. President.
Okay. We've had a public hearing on item 1. Does anybody like to call that special? If not, can we take up 1? Please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Okay. We also have items 2 to 4. Public hearings have been held. There's a card for item 3, but it will take a motion to reopen.
I'm sorry, Mr. President, public hearing has not been held on those
Oh,
items.
it's not. I'm sorry. Okay. So number 3 we'll call special for this card. And anybody wishing to call 2 or 4 special? Okay. If not, please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Okay. Any additional items, Madam Clerk?
You should take up the special meeting 3 before going back into the regular meeting.
Okay. Mr. McQuiston, Jim McQuiston on item number 3, please.
And item 1 special, if you would, Mr. President, item 1 special.
Forthwith on one?
Forthwith, the
You got it.
special item 1 special,
Okay.
1 forthwith.
Eric,
Yes.
for Mr. Perry, can we have forthwith on number 2 on the special agenda?
Sure. We'll go number 1 and number 2 forthwith. Mr. McQuiston, welcome.
Jim McQuiston.
And 4.
I'm speaking as a property owner in the area of the bid. This particular bid is an octopus which is expanding its tentacles into an area which is restricted to manufacturing only. Bids are very, very important in commercial areas where there is foot traffic. They're not really the same impact in areas that are reserved for manufacturing. In fact, they're a little bit too costly for the small manufacturers in the manufacturing areas, which means that the manufacturers find another place to do business outside the city. That means increased traffic. That means the people who live in the area move, and we have vacancies, and we start getting police problems. So in the Hollywood area, we are trying to maintain a manufacturing area which is very, very small, and we do have a concern, our manufacturers in that area do have a concern that there should be a separate bid for the manufacturing area because the requirements are completely separate. I've put in a message to all of you, which has been distributed. It has about 5 points, and we were concerned because we could not contact the bid people to get our questions answered. And since this is an existing bid which is expanding, the people on the fringe are disadvantaged numerically. The way the bid is constructed, we don't have a chance. We have to go along with whatever is happening, so that means we really have to move. And that is very unfortunate for Hollywood. So we're really thinking that the city clerk ought to look at the requirements of these bids where there are combinations of commercial, retail, and manufacturers and wholesalers, and try to work out with the bid people before it goes to a vote so that it actually is something that people can live with.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wquiston. And I know that impacts both Council Districts 4 and 13. I'm sure Mr. Labange and I will assist you in making sure those questions get answered. Okay, absolutely. All right, anybody wishing to be heard on this, colleagues? If not, please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Forthwith, please, on that as well. That is approved. Is that finish the special agenda?
Yes, it does, Mr. President.
Okay, we can return to the regular agenda. Recess the
On the
special meetings.
regular agenda, council has motions for posting and referral,
Okay, let's post and refer those.
and there are excuses on the desk. Councilmember Garcetti requests to be excused Wednesday, June 30th to arrive at 11 a.m. for city business, and Tuesday, July 6th and 7th for personal business. Those both meet council policy.
Okay, he is excused
And
despite
Coun-
Mr. Zion's objection.
And Councilmember Villaraigosa requests to be excused Friday, June 18th for city business. A motion is required.
Okay, Mr. Zion moves, Mr. Park seconds. Mr. Villaraigosa is excused.
And that clears the desk.
Okay, desk is cleared. Announcements, colleagues. Mr. Padilla.
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, just want to remind everybody and everybody watching at home or listening on council phone that the council will stand in recess this Friday. We will not have a council meeting this Friday to allow members of the council and others to participate in any Day of Remembrance activities in honor of former President Reagan. So if you try to tune in this Friday at 10 o'clock and don't see us on, that's the reason why the next council meeting will be next Tuesday at 10 a.m.
But the city will be open for business.
The city is open for business. It's only the council meeting that has been adjourned.
Right, okay. Thank you. Other announcements, colleagues? Mr. Smith? Oh, we'll come back to you. 1 second, Mr. Labange. Mr. Smith?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I want to congratulate the Chatsworth High School chancellors for winning the city baseball championship back-to-back. 35-0 undefeated season, a great season, and their sixth city championship, third and the fourth in 4 years. So congratulations to Chatsworth High School, and also Granada Hills High School baseball, who won the city invitational tournament as well. The 12th district teams did very well this week, and congratulations to all of them.
All right, we'll see.
If memory serves me correctly, that makes it 29 out of the last 30 years that the city championship has been won by a team from the Valley.
Well, we'll see what happens when we have the mayoral council softball game. We'll see if that holds true with members, too. Mr. Labange.
And two things. That's why they're great Los Angeles City champs in the Valley, from Chatsworth or from Granada Hills. Because I always said, when you win the city title, wherever you're from in the city, you're city champs, and they can't take that away from you. I think that was a great, great thing. Mr. Garcetti, I just want to remark on Mr. Padilla when he made the remarks about the fact that we are adjourning on Friday. I just want to encourage everyone, when they can, to take time, if they could, and even those who work for us, to view at least part of the state funeral. It does have an absolute lasting effect on the state funeral for Ronald Reagan, as did those of us who saw the John F. Kennedy's funeral or Lyndon Baines Johnson's funeral. But I think it's an important part of our history. And I just want to thank the council members who were able to go to Simi Valley and pay respects to the president. Those of you who did, because I think that was important for all of us. And thank you, Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Mr. Labange. If there's no objection, I think Mr. Villaraigosa would like to reconsider item 49 to increase the penalty amount to reflect the new law that we made a change in here. If there's no objection to reconsideration, if we can open the roll on reconsideration, please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Okay, it's before us. If we make the oral change to 50,000, is that correct, Mr. Villaraigosa?
Yes, Mr. President, members, I'd like to ensure that this motion reflects the new law, which would increase the amount to $50,000 for a single incident.
There's no objection. If we can open the roll as amended on the item, please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Thank you very much, Mr. Villaraigosa, and forthwith on that reward motion. Other announcements, colleagues? Yes, Mr. And forthwith on 50 as well. Mr. Ludlow and then Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to mention a note of thank you. Last night, Council Districts 4 and 10, our staff led a community canvass to go door to door to try to get information out there about the suspect who LAPD is still looking for in the case of the abduction, kidnapping, and molestation of two young kids out of Wilshire Crest Elementary School, and then molestation of one of them. And we had, I would say, Councilmember Labange, maybe 100 parents out there last night. Joan McConico, the principal of the school, just did a great job responding to the crisis. Our command staff at Wilshire, Captain Richard Wimmer, folks at LA Police, LA School Police were out there. And again, you hate to see a tragedy like this pull families together, but unfortunately sometimes it does take that. But last night at Wilshire Crest, Councilmember Labange, myself, and our staffs were pretty overjoyed with the outpouring of support and willingness of community people to go out and actually go door to door. And we did find out that a number of leads that were not available to the LAPD did come through that canvas. And folks should just know that probably 6 out of 10 people whose doors we knocked on said they had never seen the news. They never saw the individual's mugshot, or not mugshot, the composite sketch. So just a note to those of you who may unfortunately have to endure this at some point in your own district. There were a lot of people that had never watched the news and didn't see that picture. So anyway, thank you.
For your help on that as well. Mr. City Attorney, can I ask a question? What Mr. Ludlow and I did last night is inform the public about this situation and handed out a police bulletin with the composite. Could we use that same composite and put it on our Channel 35 as a possibility?
I don't see why not, but
okay, I think that would be something. I don't
know,
former chief of police, if that would be a good vehicle in the future for other issues. So if Avak could draft me a motion for Martin and I, that would be a good way to get the word out. Instead
We
of,
might be able to do it administratively today with ITA.
Right.
We'll contact them directly. Great. Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a number of announcements. On June the 2nd, Saturday, there's about 5 or 6 events in the 8th District. At 7:30 to 12, we have the West Adams Community Pride Day at Angela Mesa Park at 48th and 8th Avenue. Also, Hyde Park Merchants Association will have their annual pancake breakfast at 5760 Crenshaw. That's 8 to 10. At the Davison Center at USC, the Los Angeles Women Appointment Collaborative is meeting, instructing women on how to get more involved in city government, and that's at the Davison Center from 8 to 1. And then the 8th District is sponsoring its first job fair, 9 to 1 at the Crenshaw Christian Center. And then also at Park Mesa Heights Neighborhood Development Council meeting at 10 a.m. at 3220 West 48th Street. Department of Aging is having their LA Festival Fitness for seniors and families at Exposition Park at 3980 Menlo, and that starts at 9 to 2. And then also the Department of Rec and Park is having their annual Class Parks Health Fair at St. Andrews Rec Center, and that starts at 11 to 2 p.m.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Parks. Other announcements, colleagues? I have an announcement this Saturday. We'll be having our walking of a neighborhood in CD 13, door-to-door canvassing. If folks would like to join us at 10 in the Wilshire District, 130 North Catalina Street, between kind of Beverly and 3rd Street. We'll be walking around there. Please join us. And I'll have my normal office hours this weekend as well. And last announcement, in case anybody in Los Angeles missed this, of course, was last night, and we all have times in our lives when we're 36 seconds down from the end of the quarter and 6 points out. We had an amazing finish here, an amazing performance from the Lakers. Shaq making his foul shot, Kobe hitting a three-pointer, and just shows you when you think we're completely down and out, this city rises to the challenge. And we look forward to our boys coming back home from Detroit, hopefully with a trophy, but we'll let them finish it out here if they have to. So with that, any adjourning motions, colleagues? Mr. Ludlow, if I can ask everybody please to rise. Mr. Ludlow.
Thank you, Mr. President. Two items two individuals I'd like to ask that we adjourn in memory of. First, Sam Trahan, a longtime resident of the 10th District, died Thursday, June 3rd, 2004. He was 68. He was born in Texas and is survived by 5 children. Sam was a dedicated community leader. He was the president of the Meadowbrook Redondo Cochran Block Club and sat on the board of the Pico Neighborhood Council. He was enthusiastic about making a difference in his community through walking and neighborhood cleanups. Sam was retired from the Social Security Administration, where he was an administrator, 68 years young. Second item is a tragic loss today. Many of you may have seen this on the news when you got up this morning. But again, in my district, another very tragic house fire claimed the life of a senior citizen, 90 years old. Some of you may remember Ruth Clayton. Ruth Clayton, a longtime resident of the 10th District, died this morning. She was born in Memphis, Tennessee, and is survived by 5 children, 13 grandchildren, and 5 great-grandchildren. She was married to Mr. Robert Clayton for 64 years. He passed away 4 years ago. Ruth was an enthusiastic community leader. She was an active lay leader in the Methodist Church and was a member of First AME Church. She was active with Tom Bradley's administration when he was a council member and the mayor of LA. She helped in the opening of the Cunningham Senior Center. Also, she was a member of Las Madrinas, the Mothers of Alpha Kappa Alpha. Ruth was a dressmaker and one of the first African-American women to own a garment factory. She and her husband owned and operated a dry cleaning business on 41st and San Pedro for over 30 years. Some of you may remember Super Service Cleaners. Very tragic situation this morning. Not only do I ask that we adjourn in her memory, but I know as I was standing on the curb with her family for this morning, there were many anecdotes passed on about her, but one of the things that rang true throughout the comments through many of her children was just how impressed they were with the response of the LA Fire Department. Colleagues of the fire department was on this scene in 2.5 minutes. The fire was fully engulfed. The house was fully engulfed. 2 residents, the neighbors, came out with their hoses, tried to hose down the home. Her grandson, who was in the house, attempted to try to pull her out of the house, as well as her caretaker. They both were seriously burned, but fortunately escaped with their lives, and unfortunately were not able to pull Ms. Clayton out. As we celebrate her life, we also want to acknowledge the heroism of her neighbors, her family members, and also our LA Fire Department. May she rest in peace.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ludlow. Mr. Parks?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I ask that we adjourn in memory of Armetta Cosby. She's the mother of a longtime 8th District resident, Prince Taylor. Ms. Cosby was born in Johns, Mississippi on April 24, 1900, passed away Sunday, June 6. She was 104 years old. She lived in Stockton, California, and just recently we had the honor of presenting her a certificate in honor of her 104th birthday. Funeral services are pending.
Thank you very much, Mr. Parks. Are there adjourning motions, colleagues? Mr. LaBonge?
As we adjourn, we're joined by some students who just walked in, and this is, you want to explain what's going on, Eric?
Sure. We were just adjourning. The reason we asked you to stand is we all are standing in memory of folks in Los Angeles and other places in the country who may have passed away, and we're adjourning in their memory here at the close of the City Council meeting. What school are you guys from? Well, welcome. Sounds like a bunch of different ones. So Thank you and welcome. Madam Clerk, if you please call the roll.
Hold the roll. We're going to get the school right. What's the school? Lakeside Santa Fe Springs.
Lakeside Santa Fe Springs. Lake Center, Santa Fe Springs. Welcome. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Should have left it the other way.
Thank you all, colleagues. This meeting of Los Angeles City Council is now adjourned.